Good morning, everybody. This is Kate Kelly with Monarch Housing Associates. We're going to begin this morning's webinar for New Jersey Counts 2017, Planning Local Outreach to and Communication with the Press. Just a few housekeeping items. We are recording this webinar and we will be sharing it afterwards. So if you miss anything or want to share it with colleagues, you'll have the opportunity to do that. Everyone is in listen-only mode, but there is an opportunity for folks to ask questions. If you look at the right hand of your screen on the GoToWebinar control panel, there is a section for questions where you can type in your questions. If they are timely, I will try to answer them as we go along, or else we can always get to them at the end of our webinar. But I really encourage you to ask any questions that you might have. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. And again, feel free to chime in with any questions you may have. The agenda of this webinar, the topics that we're going to cover are some general tips for working with the press, highlighting how we can use social media, working with press contacts, thinking about what the press might want, thinking about what quotes might be good for the press, what press materials that we're going to share with you from Monarch, and then going over any questions that you may have at the end and sharing my contact information. So I want to certainly thank everybody for joining this webinar and also for agreeing to be your local point person for NJCounts. I know it's a very busy time of year and that there's a lot of work that goes on locally around the count. So having someone specifically from your community who's willing to work with the press is very helpful to us at Monarch, and hopefully will help you all in your local community get the word out about the good work that you're doing around the count and also ending homelessness in your community. I'm going to start with some tips for talking with the press. This I have in a handout that we will send out with the recording of the webinar afterwards. So if you missed some things, I'm going to talk through some of these points. They're not all up on this slide. You'll have the chance to follow up with us after. So many of you may have worked with the press before, but some of you may have not. So this may be a refresher for some or new information for others. The first thing to remember is that reporters are your friends. So whether that be a reporter for your local newspaper, for a local online paper like a Tap Into, a radio reporter, a television reporter, you all need to remember that what you're doing, going out and counting the homeless, is valued and really motivated by the fairness and goodwill that you feel you should be ending homelessness. And so you should never feel on the issue of ending homelessness that there would be any reason to be defensive with members of the press. As you've probably seen, as the issue of homelessness has been reported in your local community, reporters will always include their side of the story, so it's very important that you tell them yours. And you should be thinking about what your goal is whenever you're talking to a member of the press. Is it ending homelessness in your community through good public policy or continuing to develop relationships with members of the press, or any future goals that you can think of? This item is more like an ethics technicality, but while reporters are your friends, it's important to remember you're not their friends. So never offer them food or gifts, nothing more than a cup of coffee if you're meeting with them. And typically they wouldn't expect or accept that either. As you know, there are a lot of nonprofits in the community, in your local community in New Jersey, that are doing good work. Members of the press might call us do-gooders. But it's important for you to distinguish how the work that you're doing around ending homelessness may be different from other nonprofits or county staff that they're speaking with. So it's always good to be smart, helpful, pass on tips, and make sure that your arguments, your messages in ending homelessness make sense. We all know that the press market, media market is shrinking in New Jersey, but it's also important for you to get to know the journalists, even though those members may be changing, who are covering the issue of ending homelessness. It's important to know who covers your area at local news outlets and to give them a call. We have a statewide master list of we've tracked that's covering homelessness, but you certainly should reach out to any local contacts you have and keep a local updated list for yourself as well. It's always important to make sure you give journalists the information they need, so include important facts but not too many, the right statistics, and something we're finding to be more and more helpful is to use the hashtag, which it'll be on one of the upcoming slides, but NJCounts. Share that hashtag with them because reporters can use that to track either the stories they're reporting or what other people are reporting on either Twitter or Facebook. We're finding a lot of reporters are using Twitter and they have a presence on Twitter, so that's very helpful. Journalists will always like to have a quote or two, especially if they're pressed or overworked or under a deadline. Oftentimes, reporters may use all or part of a press release, and if there's some good quotes in there, they may just pick that quote right up directly from the press materials, and so there you are quoted in the media without even speaking to a member of press. So it's good to keep in mind when you're thinking about quotes that you want to repeat the one or two messages that you want to get through to the press. And I know I don't really need to share this with all of you, but I'm sure you all know that you always want to tell the whole truth. Even if it's contrary to the position you might be taking, you always want to give them the full and accurate story on the picture of what you're doing around the count and ending homelessness in your community. So those are the general tips for speaking with the press. As I said, we'll send that out as an attachment to folks who are on the call on this webinar. But something for you all to be thinking about is, what is your goal in reaching out to the press? What are your key messages around ending homelessness? They might be, has your community seen a decrease in ending homelessness? What has that decrease been? Messages around what is working to end homelessness in your community, what best practices you're instituting, whatever message you want them to get, that should be in your mind when you're speaking with the press and also in any quotes that you're providing. I think it's never a bad thing to just keep reemphasizing in a few different ways that you are ending homelessness. I think that's a good message for the press to get. And when in doubt, it can always be a short, basic message like that. Don't feel like you've got to get caught up in the minutia and the details. Our next slide is about social media. So the hashtag we're using is NJCounts. There is a space before the 2017, as you can see on the current slide at the top, because we use that same hashtag year to year. So we're just doing space 2017 to indicate the different years. Something to think about is how and why to use social media. As I said before, and as I'm sure you all have seen, that the media market is shrinking. So the traditional media, whether that's print or online papers, TV, radio, there are oftentimes fewer and fewer news outlets. The staffs are shrinking, but here's where social media provides us an opportunity. We can get our own and report our own story out ourselves and share our message. And by using the hashtag, you're allowing people to track the story of how NJCounts is unfolding around the state, around your local community, through Twitter and Facebook. If you're using the hashtag in your press materials, members of the press can use it to research what's going on with NJCounts. And it's a great way to just create a positive buzz about what's going on. You'll see I included a few links. One of them is Facebook, and that if you click on that link, it will take you through the history on Facebook of how the NJCounts hashtag has been used or where it's been used. You'll see some wonderful examples of photos that people have taken and posted on Facebook. I think pictures are wonderful and are a great way for you to tell your own story. A picture, a brief caption that shows folks in your community who are out and about doing the count that night. There's also a second link to Facebook video, which again is a great way to share, video footage. Everyone has a phone and can take pictures, good quality pictures and video themselves, and then share that on social media. The third bullet, Twitter, and again, I mentioned before how we're finding more and more members of the press local reporters, they have a presence on Twitter and they use Twitter in their research. So some of us may be more comfortable and may use Facebook more, so that may be where we post our pictures and our video. But if your organization or you personally have a Twitter account or are thinking of opening a Twitter account, it's different than Facebook, but it's another venue, that social media platform that you can use, and it's a wonderful way. You can post the same photos, same video that you're posting on Facebook on Twitter, and it's a great way to, you're limited by the number of characters, but you can have a brief message, use the hashtag, and help get the word about what you're doing around NJCounts for that. Instagram, it's not a social media platform that we use as frequently in at Monarch, but it certainly is a good one, and you can also use hashtags on Instagram. And if you personally or your organization has an active Instagram account, please also use that when you're reporting about the work you're doing around the count. Something to keep in mind, whether it's Facebook or Twitter, that once you've posted on social media, then to boost how many views and to really get the most, quote unquote, bang for your buck of your post, you want to encourage your friends, your colleagues to, if it's Facebook, on Facebook, to like the post and share the post and comment on it. And that could be an organization can do that, an individual can do that. If you're on Twitter, you want people to like it and to retweet about it, so that once it's out there, it gets spread through the social media world. When you're planning your local outreach to the press, it's important to think about who your press contacts are. So they might be traditional newspapers, online newspapers, television, radio. Who does your organization work with when you want to get the word out about something going on in your agency or in your county? And who are the reporters that you've seen their byline, whether it's online or a link to a radio story, who are reporting on homelessness? It's good to get that list together prior to the count so you have those folks to reach out to, and you can always be adding to it. And it could just be, keeping a simple Excel spreadsheet with the name of the media outlet, their name, their phone number, and email address. And if you're active on Twitter, you could even add their Twitter hashtag, because then you'd have it if you ever wanted to tag them in a post. It's good to think about how you can connect the press to local agencies working to end homelessness. This is one of the opportunities that NJCounts provides every year. So this is the opportunity for you not only to reach out to the press, but to make sure they have your contact information and contacts of local agencies working to end homelessness. It would be great, and this is something we try to do, organizing the media on the statewide level, but it would also be great in your local community if you had, in addition to yourself, 1, 2, 3 local service providers, folks who go out and do street counts, folks who operate supportive or affordable housing, who would be willing to speak to the press. So if you start getting calls a few days before the NJ counts, during or after, you could send a quick email or text back to a reporter and say, here are some people that are willing to speak with you on your story. Something we certainly see in our work, which I'm sure you all also see in your work, is not only do reporters want to speak to the professionals in the field, maybe even more so, they want to speak to individuals and families who are experiencing homelessness, who are formerly homeless. I know there are confidentiality issue concerns around this, and I certainly understand and respect those, but if there are 2 or 3 people in your community who are willing to share their at least first name, maybe a photo of themselves, and tell their story about the impact homelessness has had on their life, and if they've been able to move into housing or gotten support services, how that has helped them, those make really great personal interest snippets and quotes to go in your local press release, or to go in your to share with reporters. And those really are who reporters are going to want to be speaking with. So now's the time to maybe start thinking about that piece. As I said, there can be confidentiality issues, so it may not be possible the night of the count or the day of the count for you to connect a reporter directly with someone that day, but if you have 3 people, 3 people, families, individuals waiting in the wings, ready, who you could say to a reporter, well, may not have someone at this soup kitchen or at this emergency shelter who's willing to speak with you, but here's someone else in our local community, and they are happy to speak with you. And it's really just a matter of having their name, cell phone number, if they use email address, although cell is best. You could even have 1 or 2 sentences that tells their story in a nutshell, and that's really helpful. I've worked with many of your communities in helping us find individuals willing to share their story. We've had some great success sharing these impact of homelessness stories with the press, with elected officials, and I'd be more than happy to talk through the logistics with any of you about concerns about confidentiality and finding individuals and families, and what we can all do to share the impact of the personal stories of the impact of homelessness with the press. So what details will the press want to know about your local count, and what will they want to and need to know? So the details of your local count: when is your street and shelter count happening? Why is your local count being conducted? We all know there's a HUD mandate, but what are above and beyond that are the reasons why you do the count? Something for you to think about. Who is counting locally? So who's coordinating your count? Who will be out doing the count? What factors do you expect to impact? None of us can predict the future, but what do you expect will impact the number you're going to see? Are there statewide factors? Are there local factors? Has your federal funding changed? Whatever it may be. I know in the past, the change in the chronic homelessness definition has affected the numbers. This year I know is the year that HUD is hoping to get a good baseline about youth homelessness. So is an increased participation or anticipated increased participation from youth providers something that you think may impact your count? These are all things the press may want to know about. And then who can be interviewed locally? So that gets back to what we talked about in the previous slide. Are there some local providers, street outreach workers, families and individuals impacted by homelessness who can be interviewed? In sharing all these details, don't forget this is really a great opportunity for you and your organization to share your story of why you're doing this count, why it's important, and how it positively impacts your work. Okay, next slide. So press materials. Monarch, as we have in the past, I'll be working to get some materials out to our press list. We have a statewide press list, and we have regional press and local press that we send it to. We are going to send out a statewide press advisory, which does not go into the details of the counts at the local level, but we will send that out 2 weeks before the count. I'm thinking we'll probably send that out by next Wednesday, January 11th. What the press advisory does is tell the members of the press, this is happening, and here are the basic details, the who, what, when, and why, and sort of as a teaser to get them ready to think about reporting. The actual press release, which is more detailed, maybe 2 pages long, we'll send out about 2 weeks before the count. And I see here there's a typo on my slide that we'd send it out the 23rd in 2017. We're not jumping ahead to the future in 2018. And probably send it out, so send it out the 23rd, 2 days before the count, and then again on the day of the count. This, again, will have more details, that will have quotes from some folks working statewide, may have some quotes from some local communities. And what we'll do with both of those materials is I will send out, as I said, the advisory and the release to our press release. We will also send it to you in a Word document so that if you want to, you can go in, cut and paste from it, edit it, and send it out under your own letterhead, maybe still keeping hopefully the NJCounts 2017 logo, and send that to your local contacts. I don't think there's any harm to reporters receiving something with a similar message from Monarch at the statewide level and from you all locally. I think it would be great for them to hear from both of us. The press release, when I send that to you ahead of time, we will have it embargoed, so we just as a courtesy that you don't send it out before we do, but once we send it out, we'll give you the heads up, and you can certainly again, go in and edit it and cut and paste it and use it yourself, or just forward, if it's easier for you, forward what we're sending out. We like to send some additional materials with the press release. We're hoping this year to have, if we can't fit everything, all the great quotes we have in our press release, we'd like to put some quotes in a separate document that reporters can use. We'll also highlight what the best practices are in ending homelessness. We'll have a fact sheet about homelessness in New Jersey. And maybe also, I'm sorry, I'm seeing another typo here, on NJCounts, a fact sheet about the NJCounts data from 2016, and also just some frequently asked questions that the press asks about why in general this event is done. You know, if you're talking to reporters who've been covering this issue for a couple years, which may or may not happen given all the recent staff changes at papers, they may know the drill and may know why we're doing the count. But if you get someone new, it doesn't hurt to go over with the basics with them about why we are doing a count. I've talked a little bit about quotes and why they're so important, but just as a refresher, reporters really like and use quotes. They add a nice level of detail and personalization to press materials and then in turn to news stories. And as much as you can have a few quotes typed up, ready to go with a, attributed to an individual, first and last name, where possible, and an organization, although if it's someone impacted by homelessness, maybe you're just giving their first name. Those quotes you'll see will probably get used over and over and really are a great way for you to get your message out. The quote could come from the person who's heading up. Who should the quote come from? It could come from the person heading up the NJCounts 2017 effort in your local community. They could come from a frontline provider who's out on the front lines doing the count. They could come from an individual impacted by homelessness. I leave that up to you on where you want your quotes to come from locally, and I think a variety is always nice. If you pulled together some quotes and want to share them with Monarch, we'd really appreciate it. And then if I get a call from someone looking to know what's going on locally in a community, I can share that quote as well. Some sample quotes to think about to get you started are: X county participates in NJCounts because NJCounts data helps us do XYZ. We hope that the NJCounts results will, and you can finish those out however you want. And again, those are just samples that you all can use. If I don't have this on there, but if you're getting a quote from someone who's been impacted by homelessness, they could say, homelessness impacted my life by XYZ. My life, our family's life has improved since. They could talk about moving into housing, getting services, whatever has helped them. And the quotes are just going back to quotes. They really are an opportunity to just keep repeating the key messages that you want reported. So this slide's a little outdated, since instead of asking people to use the software to raise a hand, I'm going to ask you just to type in any questions you have. If people want to go ahead and type in questions, that would be very helpful, and then I can announce who the questions are coming from and give the answers as best I can. One more sort of miscellaneous press tip that we have is, if you feel comfortable and have a good relationship with the 2 U.S. Senate offices or the congressional offices, they all have their own press people. Typically they work out of the Washington, D.C. offices, but in some cases they might be in the district. It never hurts to send a press material, send any press materials that you put together locally to your offices, to the Senate and congressional offices. That's always very helpful, and they may use it to help you share the story by issuing a press release or posting something on their website about what's going on. So I have one question. I'm just going to open up the window. Will we be sending out slides after the webinar? Yes, as I said earlier, this webinar is being recorded, so we will send this recording out to folks, so you will be able to view the webinar, maybe share it with other people in your community or in your office who are interested in working with the press. and there are a few handouts we'll be sending out as well. And then as the press advisory gets ready to be released and the press release gets ready, we'll be sharing those materials with you as well. Other questions folks may have? I know I've gone over a lot of information, and as I said, I realize for some of you this is review, but for some it may be new. So I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have. Just wait a minute and see if we get any. Okay. If there are no more questions, again, I just want to really thank everyone for joining us and for the work you're doing to help get the word out about working with the media around NJCounts 2017. At this time, we'll end the webinar, but we will be, it's been recorded, so we will have it later today available or tomorrow in a format that we can share with you and that you can review on your own or share with others. And I'm just going to go to the last slide before we leave, which has my contact information on it. That's my email address, my cell phone, my office phone. Please reach out to me with any questions you may have. I work part-time. I'm typically in the office Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and I work from home on Friday mornings. So cell is best, and it's always a great way to reach me. And even if it's, especially as NJCounts, the date of the count, the 25th gets a little closer, feel free to call or text me if there's a quick question. It's a day I'm not in the office. I'm always happy to help with that. I see we just got one other question. That was a comment. Okay. All right. So thanks, everybody. And I really look forward to working with you around this. Have a good day. Bye.